Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ted, and today I'm joined by...
Nerdarchist Dave.
Can you play the loner in D&D? Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
So we had a viewer suggestion that came in from one of the many plethora of places you guys reach out to us. It's getting hard to track you guys between Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and
Patreon,
website,
email.
Yeah.
Emails.
No, if it was Patreon, we absolutely know who you are.
Well, true, but I'm saying, email and Patreon are the easiest ways to get a hold of us, but the other ways...
They get lost a little bit easier. So someone they wanted advice or our thoughts on the this is more of a D&D player tip, but the lone wolf character.
So there's times that somebody decides that they're going to play the lone wolf, and you wind up getting involved in a short adventure, and then once the rest of the campaign goes on, it's like, well, if I'm not being drawn into the rest of it, what is my incentive to stay with this character and continue along with the plot?
Yeah, the problem with the lone wolf is just that they're meant to be lone wolf characters. Like, it's a trope, and it's kind of like something that as gamers we like. But the problem is it doesn't fit in with the dynamics of a gaming group.
Right.
And again, like these are definitely the characters that are more likely to want to be the snowflake character, the special character.
Right.
Just by their actions of trying to want to go off and do things on their own, kind of makes them attention hogs or spotlight hogs, which is again group dynamic doesn't work very good. Right. It's much better in a novel or a comic book or even a movie than in a gaming group, because in those forms of media there is absolutely no problem with the story going with that character and then coming back. And
the problem is a lot of players are inspired by those things they watch, see, and read. So it's like, oh, well, I really love character X because he goes off and does these things by himself. He's badass. I want to replicate that. And that's not really something that's found at the gaming table unless you're doing a solo session.
Right. Well, it is found at the gaming table, but never in a good way.
Well, what I'm saying is it shouldn't.
Yes. Yeah. Ultimately, you want all the players in the group to be able to work together, solve problems together, adventure together, do the things together, so everybody can have fun. No one wants to come to the table and watch one player play the game.
So it begs the question: is there a way to do that kind of lone wolf character without being the attention hog, without running off and trying to do things by yourself, leaving the group behind?
Scott Garrity actually does it pretty well.
Okay. Do you want to get into some generalization or some specific examples?
Yeah, he absolutely has done things where he goes, okay, you're doing this side thing by yourself, and this one die roll is going to determine your outcome, right? So
you're talking about from the DM's perspective?
Yes.
Okay.
Not from the character's perspective.
Okay.
As a player, he actually comes up with those things too, where he wants to do stuff, but he's always like, you know what, I'm not going to do that because it's going to take away from the whole group, and he's actually conscious of that. Mm-hmm. But as the DM, he has done it where, okay, well, you're going to do this. Here's like 3 decisions you have to make, and maybe a couple die rolls. Mm-hmm. So it really is expedited, and it's like whatever that arc is happens really fast. And it's like roll good. Mm-hmm. So it's also kind of grognardish too, and his approach to it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it does allow for some solo action to happen without detracting from the table and taking away a ton of time from everybody else's game.
So he actually, in his game that we didn't record, you had played a warlock, and you had gone to hell to try and get your soul back.
Right, yeah.
And that was literally decided with a die roll. And you wound up having an option of losing one of your followers to be successful.
Yeah, so here's the idea. Like, so he put in... Now, I completely came up with this as, hey, this is just a background thing. I never meant to have it happen in the game. It was just a piece of story. He's like, well, what would you be working on? Well, my character's he traded his soul, and he's always trying to get it back. Trying to figure that out. Okay, well, you're going to have to go to hell to make that happen. I'm like, all right. Well, you figure out how to do it, and you actually get a retinue of paladins to go with you. and he's like, "Here's the die roll, and here's what you need." And he's like, "Here's a range where you can still succeed if you fail, but it's going to cost the life of a paladin." And and I didn't, and I fell in that window. I didn't pass the check, and I was like, I will absolutely sacrifice that paladin to get my soul back. So that guy has this little ball of light in a cage he wears around his neck, which is his soul. And by not absorbing it back into his body, Scott's like, you can still have your warlock powers as long as you just wear that amulet.
Right.
And that whole like thing took like 10 minutes. The way he did it, it was fairly well done.
I think it was actually even quicker than that.
It was, yeah, and it was just like some story elements that were thrown in there real quick. So, if you can do it that way, it's not bad. No. And he went around the table and everyone did like something similar to that. But even that being said, like the downside is, when you run it that way, if there's 6 of you at the table and you all do a thing and it takes 10 minutes,
that's an hour.
That's an hour. You know what I mean? So you really have to think about, doing things like that. Is it fair to the rest of the table? And your table might be okay with it. Mm-hmm. If your group is like, whatever, we don't care, we hang out, we're going to be over here making jokes and talking about Mighty Python while that's going on, it's not a big deal.
Now, from my perspective, if everybody's getting their 10 minutes and for the most part, people are coming out on top, all right, that's a pretty cool thing. You get 10 minutes to shine and you get to sit for 15 minutes. Well, I've had plenty of time at the table where other stuff is going off that I'm not a part of or I'm not, focused on. I'm like, all right, I can just sit back and chill and be entertained by the game because that's really what can happen. Now, in a similar situation, also involving Scott, but things were flipped. He wanted to go kill an NPC in one of my games, and it was a situation, this is a recorded session that's, I don't even know what session number it was, but it was my game for the Griffin Gaff thing, and he was going to go kill Mayor Hemsworthy. And it's like, well, I can't have this be a protracted out fight. It's going to take too long of a time. So I gave him a die roll and whatever.
You Scott Garbated it.
I did. I totally went with it because I couldn't go through all the ins and the outs of the investigation, the combat. It's not fair to the rest of the players. So I did turn it around that way. Now, from the other perspective of playing a lone wolf character and getting into the game. Okay, well, it is your job as the player, not the DM's job, to find reason to stay in a game if you want to keep that character. If you can't, as the player, do it, why on earth would you ever expect the DM to make it his job to keep you in the story? I know there's been many times as the DM, I've put a situation out there and the players went to it or not. As the player, there's been times that I'm like, well, I have no reason to do this, but this is where the game is going. I'm not going to make it more challenging on the GM to force his hand to make me be in there. It's not worth it.
I am so over that. There's a time and a place I would have done that. Now I'd have been like, where's your character? Okay, he's there. And I would literally ignore that player for the rest of the game. You don't want to play the game that everybody else is playing. Sorry.
We are not characters in a novel. And I know there's some groups out there that's what they expect. But for the greater populace that play this game, that's not the style of game that's being run. That's not the style of game that's being played. So don't force that situation. If you're a player and you want that lone wolf dude, all right, great. Play the morose, silent.
Sit with your back in the corner.
Sit with your back in a corner. But when shit goes down, well, you know what? Those people had my back when we were working together on this thing. So you know what? I'm gonna be me. I can't not be me, but I'm not gonna let them falter when they could use a sword or a bow or eyes. Whatever it is that you associate that character with. Go out there and be a part of that group, because you know what, you want to play the game. That's what we're here for.
If you're a lone wolf, just treat the group as the pack you've decided to circle from the outside at least, and go with that. It's the only way it's going to work. Otherwise, the onus, like Ted said, the onus is on you to play the game and figure out how your character works into the scenarios. If you want to play the game.
Now, another case in point, ironically, also involving Scott. Scott had something that his character really wanted to do, and he wasn't willing to put it down. He was like, nope, he has to go and do this. but he was there for the session. So he's like, I'm going to have my main character go off and do that. Can I play? And he pulled an NPC right out of the back. Can I play a veteran and tag along with the group so that I'm still involved in the game? And then once that session was over, this subplot line was dealt with. It wasn't anything that took any time away from the game. Didn't require me and Scott to sit down afterwards and discuss what happened. It was honestly this takes time. I have to do it. Fine, no problem. NPC went off and was like, oh my God, I got to travel with the heroes and I got to do this and I survived. And, then Asen comes back to the party and all's happy hunky-dory. So that's another possible solution, but you're going to play an NPC who's not going to be as powerful as a player character.
Or relevant.
Or relevant, but you might wind up having another option if you can't put that issue aside.
Yeah, that is actually a fun thing that was introduced in one of Scott's Star Wars games was if you want to pop in as an NPC and it makes sense for that NPC to be there, you absolutely can, even though your player is not.
Right.
So that's just, not only in the lone wolf scenario is that a solution and a fun way to go, but also when you split the party as well. Sometimes Scott's a freaking genius. It was a really fun idea that we all enjoyed. But in the comments below, you guys can you can discuss with us and amongst yourselves how you feel about the lone wolf character. Does it have a place in the D&D adventuring party or not? Is it your favorite type of character to play? Do you even care what the other players do? Let us know. Like, share, comment. Subscribe. They're already subscribed. Everyone's subscribed.
You can hang out with us over on Facebook.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.